at different spots in the city and across the country. But in the meantime, I want us to begin by looking at what just happened last week, that we saw the nomination of some 50 chief administrative secretaries by President William Ruto. And I want us to take a look at some of those names that you see majority of them politicians. Some of them are former governors, former senators, former members of parliament, and some aspirants that lost election in the just concluded 2023 general election. And let me begin with Nelson Koech here, because a few months ago, there was a letter from the Public Service Commission to Joseph Kinyua, then Chief of Staff and Head of Public Service, clearing that it was okay to create 23 positions of CAS. And this was based on a request that had come from the same office. But now at the nomination, now you find 50 names. How is the executive accounting for that difference? You request for 23, you're approved to get 23, but you go ahead to nominate 50.
Good morning, sir. First of all, I do not, from where I sit, understand the reason for an uproar in the picking of 50 CSS. First of all, it satisfies the PSC requirements. They're fulfilled. The number that you indicated, 23, was a request considering what had been viewed at that point that the numbers were necessary. But the Constitution has emphasized strongly that the need of inclusivity in government. That, I think, from the President's perspective and Public Service Commission, has necessitated the increase of numbers from escalation from number from initial 23 to 50 to allow every part of this country representation at the apex, at the executive, so that you have 50. I can tell you, Kenya Kwanza, and if you look, there is a CS, there is a PS or a CAS, at least from every part of this country. That is an inclusivity that we are talking about. Sam, it should not be expensive, considering if you consider inclusivity against the cost. The cost is about 450 million per year. I don't know. I mean, I can't.
How much did you say?
About 450 million per year. That against the cost of inclusivity, I find it very modest. Let me tell you this. You will hear our opponents complaining about the number that you've talked about. Yeah. Even on BBI itself, it was a huge executive. And you remember when we were criticizing it, was because of the creation of even a bigger executive than this one that we've tried as much as possible to minimize, to make sure there's representation and inclusivity as envisioned in the Constitution from every part of this country. So that number, to me, I find it extremely modest and very necessary. We have minimized it. We do not need a lot of, like what was in BBI. Ours is to make sure that the President has a clear team that is going to execute the mandate of Kenya Kwanza.
What do you mean you have minimized it?
If you consider what was being proposed in BBI, it was a very big number. It was an enlarged executive. You remember there was a Prime Minister, Deputy Prime Minister, and then you had all these cabinet secretaries. It was a very big...
You see, that was a proposal. This is something you're implementing. You have 51 PSs. You have 22 CSs.
Yes.
Then you have 50 CSs. That's a whole 123. Even without counting the President, General.
That is perfect, to allow every part of this country to have a representation and inclusivity, which has been overemphasized in the Constitution. You need someone from Migori, for instance. We have someone from Migori. We have someone from Homa Bay. Every part of this country, we've made sure we have someone from Tharaka Nithi.
So someone from Migori, who? What position?
Migori, we have CS.
Which one?
I will confirm the name, but we have a CAS from Migori.
Okay, I'll give you time to figure out who that is, but...
no, Wakil here can even help me.
Just I'll give an opportunity.
Homa Bay, we have Kidero.
It's not from Migori.
I'm here to...
He's from Homa Bay. Honorable Sanem,
yes, sir.
Just allow me, I'll give you an opportunity. Honorable Mboy, what do you make of this? And I'm particularly interested on... If you make a request of 23 names and you're clear to get 23 names, but the nominations are 50, what should happen? I know the President maybe has the power to convince Parliament on why 50, but what should happen?
I think this is clearly an indication of how unresponsive this regime is, because, I mean, even in their own request of 23, they've just gone up and more than doubled it. And in fact, let's just be honest that even appointing so many CASs at a point when Kenyans are suffering and Kenyans are complaining, and on a day like this when we are saying we are going out to demonstrate for the rights of the people, it's shocking. It just shows that they are totally unresponsive. And I listened to my colleague here when he starts saying that, you know, this is I don't know, better than BBI. For how long are we going to make BBI the scapegoat for everything? You know? And every time something goes wrong, they'll bring the Uhuru's name, they'll bring BBI. These are things that are in the past. We cannot live in the past. Let us move to the future. The future is that now, when I listen to my colleagues say that these people will cost us only 450 million, first and foremost, even the car grants that they will get of 10 million each is already 500 million. I mean, simple mathematics. Now, let's talk about what exactly does the office of a CAS entail. They'll be given a vehicle, a GK vehicle or two. And this has always been there, even from the past. They'll be given secretaries. They'll be given, you know, staff for their offices. They'll get space for offices. They'll require to have security. And they will also have to be paid salaries. And that office has to run. So there'll be office expenses. I'm looking at a minimum of 3 million a month. I mean, on the bare minimum. And multiply that by the 50 of them. That's 150 million in a month. By the time you hit a year, that's about 1.8 billion. Plus the car grant. I mean, these people are really, you know, cheating this country. And look, you just put the names and the pictures of the people that got these positions. I remember during the last campaigns, we were being told that this government of Kenya Kwanza, if they get opportunity to rule this country, they will be dealing with issues to do with the Mwananchi. You know, the Mamamboga, the Boda Boda. I don't know, unless you say there is a Mamamboga in that list whom I've not seen, or a Boda Boda rider in that list whom I've not seen. I think we've been taken for a ride. And the hustlers now are aware that Kenya Kwanza is not concerned about taking care of the issues.
From our calculations that were done by Ayub Abdikadil, it comes to about 639 million shillings every year for the salaries. That becomes 3.1 billion shillings in 5 years. Then in terms of the car grant, like you say, it's 500 million shillings. Mortgage allowance of 35 million shillings per person, that comes to 1.75. So if all of them take the mortgage, then at the end, the country will have spent 5.4 billion shillings.
Let me clarify something on this. It is not just about the salary of the CS. Mm-hmm. The CS will come with a retinue of staff. They will get secretaries, they will get PAs, and they will recruit these people, you know, so that they can have their staff working for them. And all these people will be paid because it will not be free. Again, the office will also need to run. There will be expenses of running the office. So again, that's also going to be added up. So it's not the figures that are being touted. I am telling you, it cannot be less than 3 million a month for every one CS to run their office. And then now, we've been told, you know, this is about inclusivity. But even the Constitution says that we'll have so many cabinet secretaries. Why didn't the Constitution, which says we have inclusivity, say, let's have as many cabinet secretaries as the tribes in Kenya? Inclusivity is not about every tribe being given a position. I think that's total hogwash, and I think we have been taken for a ride, and Kenyans need to rise up. And today, Kenyans must go and demonstrate that they are unhappy about this regime.
I'm not sure I'll allow you to mobilize on the show. But Honorable Sani, it's your first time on Daybreak, right?
Pardon?
It's your first time here on Daybreak.
That is it. All
right, so karibu sana. And tell me about this list, those concerns about the numbers, and what Kenyans should do now.
Sam, thank you. It is good to call a spade, not a big spoon. And history cannot just be wished away. It is what informs our future. It was just some 6 or 8 months when BBI was being proposed. And you can imagine the consequences that it could come with if it was passed. Luckily, Kenyans rejected it. So it is not, let us demonize discussing BBI. Because if it was to go through, Kenya would have been in another shape in terms of cost. That's a reality. Somebody doesn't have to stop us from discussing BBI. Let me go through. You will ask me. It's my first time, so don't distract me. Don't distract me. You discuss costs in terms of mortgage. Mortgage is never free, Sam. It is your salary, forfeited as mortgage. So don't talk of salary and mortgage at the same time. That's a double speak. We are talking of unemployment. What's the harm in having 2 employees with a CAS? That's a good thing for the country. You know the status of employment in this country. That aside, the vehicles are facilitative to do service delivery for Kenyans. These are not gifts for individuals. One other thing, our constitution is not a divine law. It's man-made. The fact that it has limited to 22 CSS doesn't mean it is perfectly so. It doesn't still carry the face of the country. Kenya is, in real terms, over some 42 communities, tribes. And whenever we are sharing resources, equity demands that it reflects the face of the country. That's a requirement in the Constitution. We can't speak on one side of the Constitution and dampen the other part. So what I mean to say, even under Uhuru Raila government, towards the end, we had CAS, which were not legit to that extent. This one has the legal backing. It was taken to court, cleared. Public service was asked to do the interviews, send the list. The president has the leeway. Nothing stops him. That is the law now. Unless you want to tell me, if the court's cleared, who else? And what he has done, even me, I have some beef with the appointment in terms of my community. That is the Kenyan way. We have to be real. My community was not considered, and I was the first one making noise. Koichi knows. They were not considered. I come from a tribe just like yours, in as much as we are a minority. They have never been a cabinet secretary. They have never been a principal secretary, CAS, ambassador, and I'm still agitating for that right. And that is the face of the country.
But you just told me...
the same way Raila is on the roads and the streets, demanding for things through an unorthodox means, not through the ballot. I'm also asking the head of state, who is my president, UDA, to give my community a CAS, even if there will be 52. It is a right.
You just told...
It is inclusivity. What is exclusion? If you are fighting inclusivity, so you want to say exclusion is the way?
So make me understand this.
Kenya is not for big tribes only. I also need part of it, and that's what I mean.
I hear you, Honorable Sani, but
Thank you.
I hear you speaking from 2 sides, because you're saying that the positions are created for inclusivity, but also saying that your community is yet to be included. So I'm wondering, who are those 50? Why not from your community? Yeah. But at the same time, tell me, if you write to the public service to conduct public participation to create 23 CAS positions so that every ministry will have 1 CAS, but the Interior Ministry will have 2, then you go ahead, you receive clearance to create them, but you create 50. How do you explain that?
Sam, we should deal with corruption than trying to struggle over the appointment of some 40, 50 CAS who are doing work for the country. What I mean to say, it's about the face of the country. In as much as my community was not considered, I'm saying the president attempted to at least unify the country. He's a symbol of unity. He's a symbol of unity. Are you trying to say, or are we trying to say those whom he has considered are not up to the task? They don't have the intellect.
That is not what I'm saying.
They don't have the gravitas. They can't deliver anything for Kenyans.
You understand my question?
What is the question?
I am asking, so you request the public service to allow you to create 23 positions. You get clearance from the Public Service Commission to create 23, but the president creates 50.
Let me correct you, Sam, before you go to Mheshimiwa. The request that was made by the head of public service to the PSC was a request for 50 CSS.
Which one now?
That's not accurate.
The letter I see is for 23.
I'm to answer. You asked me a question.
Yes.
Nothing binds the president to go for 20 or 30. He has the leeway. That is the fact.
Then why specify in the request?
Pardon?
Why specify 23 in the request?
You see, who is... It's only a fool who is not flexible. You can change your mind. The president, he has big pressure. He's facing a lot of challenges. Yeah. He can change his mind.
Okay.
In the circumstances, I don't see anything wrong when the president has considered 40, 50 able Kenyans to hold offices. What's the problem with that? So long as it is not illegal. He has been given the leeway by the court, Sam. That's the point.
The Law Society of Kenya thinks it's illegal and unconstitutional. Let's listen to what they have to say, as they are saying that they will be going to court to challenge that list.
You cannot be able to separate which of the 23 are legal and which of the 27 are illegal. So the entire list is tainted with illegality, and on Monday we shall be filing a case in court to challenge the move by the president to create extra offices than has been recommended to him by the Public Service Commission. And that is just on the legal aspect of it. But the other question is in terms of, is it even moral to do that when the country is undergoing drought, when the level, there are protests within the country and complaints by members of the public that the cost of living has gone up? To blot the wage bill of the government by an additional 27 unnecessary offices is something that is extremely immoral and irresponsible.
All right, that's the Law Society of Kenya. And Honorable Koech, you are telling me that the request was to create 50. The letter I'm reading, which was written by Joseph Kinyo, then the head of public service, was requesting to create. It is further proposed that one position be established in each ministry, except the Ministry of Interior and Coordination of National Government, that would have 2 positions in view of the scope and significance of the portfolio mandate vested in that ministerial docket. And later there was a response from the Public Service Commission chair okaying the creation of the 23 positions that would be filled competitively. So if you have a control letter, I would be glad to have a look at it. But Wakili, yes. Dr. Eric Omolo, good morning. And
good morning.
First, so what should happen now? Because already there's the notification and Parliament is expected to vet these nominees.
I'm meeting Honorable Mbui, my friend Nelson, and Honorable Sane for the first time since the election. So let me congratulate them first. It's not easy to win elections in Kenya. I'm sure they will not tell you what they went through, but I admire what they're doing at national level, even if they disagree on positions, which is democratic.
Thank you.
Look, my position is the same position that LSK holds. We think that, and I thank the President, Eric Theuri, for being consistent on this. We think that the positions of CAS are unconstitutional. We do not have issues with the individuals that have been nominated. Obviously, they have reputation here and there, and I'm conflicted on that because I indicated earlier that Sudi Wandabusi is my friend, and Evans Kidera and I come from the same ward in Rangwe in Homa Bay. So I'm not at liberty to discuss beyond the issues, not personalities. But the bigger issue is we think that these positions are unconstitutional. The Constitution allows the President to create positions in public service.
Right.
In consultation with the Public Service Commission. The Constitution does not allow the President to create equivalent of constitutional offices. CAS positions are by and large, by job description, state offices. So more or less, you are talking of deputy ministers. And what has happened lately is that the president has then abused those powers. It's not really him alone. I mean, even the previous president did that. Abused those powers to create positions and then reward individuals that are perceived to be loyal to him. Our concern is that if you have such a leeway to create equivalent of state offices, then they're susceptible to abuse. I mean, Nelson struggled here to justify what I think he was trying to refer to regional balance. Oh, somebody from Migori, oh, Kidero from Homa Bay, oh, so-and-so from Kiambu and all that. That's not the issue. The issue is, does the president have powers to create equivalent of state offices? And we think it doesn't. But also, we also need consistency. if you have indicated to the court, no, this is not about LSK debate outside, to the court through a letter, that the office is to be created. The court gives you orders along those lines. The office is to be created at 23. Then you end up creating 50. And then you end up even violating the constitution further, not giving women and minorities 30%. You know, there's this 2/3 gender rule, eh? There are only 13 out of 14, I think, out of 50. In a country that is very gender sensitive, but importantly, by a president who also indicated that he was going to give women 50% of slots in government. So we are talking of a very, very serious constitutional violations here. But I choose to be progressive, because I know even a subsequent president may create these positions. A more progressive way is the relevance of caste positions to administration in Kenya. And the bigger concern here is that, ministers are overwhelmed. And I think some are overwhelmed. The bigger question is, how do we then have a mechanism for having these positions without burdening the public? And I indicated last week here that perhaps we need to have a conversation. And by the way, I'm very happy that the president has finally started to talk along the lines of having some kind of talks, because that is the discussion we need. I mean, you can talk of BBI, whatever you want to talk about, but the important thing is the two political forces, Azimio and Kenya Kwanza, need to talk, have a conversation around many things. One of them is this cause. I think that Nelson Koech is doing a wonderful job in Parliament. I think he chairs the Foreign Affairs, yes. There's no reason why Nelson cannot be deputy minister while remaining MP for Belgut. You see, and in that process, because the issue is accountability to Parliament. Okay. Then you don't have this situation where you over-reward, for lack of a better word, those who failed in the last elections, and in the process of burden people in a country, and some, you know, this is a very unfortunate, in a country that by and large doesn't even have foreign reserves, but importantly, that is going very slowly but surely towards a financial crisis. You know, people have not appreciated that the world is headed.
Dr. Komolo, sorry, let me cut you short there so that we can take a link with Safena Cheng, who is